Well, what a topic today. The 7 rays or departments. I've been researching in Alice Bailey and in Laurency, and they use different terminology. Laurency calls them departments, Bailey calls them rays, and so I'll use the 2 words interchangeably here as I go in various quotes, etc. We're told that in the highest worlds, the cosmic worlds of great distance from us in terms of our evolutionary progress, which we will get to someday, but that from the perspective of those beings, the great truths are very simple. And the higher you go, the simpler the truths are, even though they might be harder to understand. A truth like all consciousness is one. Well, that could be a tough one. And we're working on that one, of course. But from those high levels, there is a gradation down all the way down to our lower, much, much lower level. The physical plane is really the lowest of the worlds. And in this world, what we see is a tremendous differentiation and diversity of forms and of types of energy. Just look at the variety of the plant kingdom and the animal kingdom and the kinds of people that there are. So many unique qualities to all these people. It's helpful to have a structural system in mind for how you can sort these things out. Otherwise, this diversity is somewhat overwhelming. And people have come up with quite a number of systems. Astrology is one. If you can sort people out into their astrological sign, that's one way to consider the differences between people. What I'm talking about today are the 7 rays, 7 departments that correspond to the 7 unique notes in an octave. And we know that everything is actually energy in some way, that even matter is a sort of crystallized energy that has its vibrational frequencies. These frequencies, as they double to make each new octave, they are composed of 7 unique notes, an octave is, and primary notes. And then the 8th is actually a repetition of the first. So it's really, an octave might be called a septive, actually, more accurately. Well, those vibrational frequencies have relationships, and they correspond to the 7 rays, and they have meaning in relationship to each other more than anything else. Like if I were to go to the piano and plonk down one note, it doesn't really mean anything. But as soon as I add a few others, we've got a chord. Or if I make a progression of notes, there's an emotional context to that. There's a sense of meaning. And if you look at a human being, we ourselves are chords energetically. We have a physical body, or etheric body mainly that this is talking about, emotional, mental, a personality, that is the first triad, and then causal body, soul. And that's 5 different bodies that each can be on a different note of that octave or a different ray/department. And that makes for tremendous differences between individuals. Interestingly, some of these relationships between notes have an interesting function, like the 7th note. As a musician, I know that you would play the 7th note to lead into the first and use it to change keys. If you're trying to set a new primary note that's the key, basically, you play the 7th, and that leads you right into the first. That's an interesting observation anyway. And these notes resonate, vibrations resonate. This physical octave, the emotional octave, the mental octave that our consciousness exists in, something that rings that bell of the 4th subplane of the emotional is going to set up a corresponding resonance in the other worlds. So if we're going to talk about these higher worlds, it's good to recognize that they are also organized the same way. all the worlds, all the way up to the highest cosmic world, have these septenary natures. We talk about the 7 subplanes of the emotional world or astral world. And that correspondence is noted by Laurency and Bailey in all the worlds. And I want to point something else about these, this numbering, this 1 through 7. It doesn't work out sequentially necessarily. In our lives, we're not going through one ray, then the next, then the next, then the next, or sequentially through planes. It's in our own bodies, it's whatever combination of these serves our evolutionary purpose. That we're trying to be evolving consciousnesses. That's what we're doing here. Consciousness evolves. And so our particular makeup of these departments will have to do with what our opportunities are. You know, what an incarnation might provide for us based on these relationships. For instance, the soul is very important, what you've got for the ray of the soul, because that determines, you know, your primary, the energy you're trying to detect and work with. And if that soul ray is the same as your emotional ray, that means soul is going to express itself most easily through your emotions. So just to take one step back from the 7, if we're going to talk about the 7, we can talk about what they're derived from, and that is the trinity, the ultimate trinity that Laurency points out: motion, matter, and consciousness, which you could also say corresponds to will, love, and intelligence, or spirit, form, and soul. So these are a priori. I've mentioned these in other talks before. Laurency insists that there is no way that you can deduce consciousness from other elements. It's not composed of other things. And it's not composed of matter and motion either. These are 3 absolutely essential qualities of everything. So the first 3 rays actually represent those 3 qualities. The first ray, the ray of will, of power, of destructive energy, especially used by humans on a lesser evolved level. It's used destructively, but there's a good destructive energy too. When forms simply have outlived their usefulness, the first ray helps clear them away. You find it in the institutions, human institutions of politics, of power, military. It's not in manifestation right now. Each of these rays is either in or out of manifestation. And it's about 2,000 years from now, according to Laurency, when this ray will come in. And it's an interesting thing to note, because humanity is not ready for the first ray to come through with any kind of real strength. We could really blow it with that much power. So thank goodness it's taking its time to get here. You know, my grandfather was a first ray individual. I feel pretty certain about that, and he thought of himself that way. And an example of how he thought about things is, when I was telling him about some situation of mine, you know, how to approach it, he said, decide how you want it to be and make it that way. Well, there's the first ray for you. It's not pussyfooting around. It just, this is it, make it so. Jean-Luc Picard would say, make it so. He is first ray, captain of the Enterprise. All right. Well, you've got the first ray aligned with the unity of the universe. And then you've got, when you look at the unity and the highest cosmic worlds, you've got this tremendous differentiation that I mentioned. That brings out a duality. That brings in matter into the equation. And when you have 2 things, it is the energy of love for almost all of the universe anyway. The energy of that of a duality of spirit and matter is love. That's what brings them together. It's only humans that can perceive a duality as being oppositional. The institutions that the second ray shows up in are education, family, psychology. In higher religion, where the focus is on loving each other rather than judging each other, this department, the second department, is actually the most powerful department of all, because this is a second ray solar system. It's the second incarnation of this solar system. The first was a third ray, which we're about to talk about. And then now a second ray incarnation, which makes it the most powerful ray of all. And technically, the other rays, the other departments, are sub-departments of the second ray in this solar system. It's been in manifestation since 1575. And what that means when a ray is in manifestation is that souls of that type can incarnate, and that there is a greater flow of that sort of energy available for all of us to experience and use. And I don't know when it goes back out of incarnation. That hasn't been stated. It seems to be on a very long cycle, like some of the other rays. Some of them are on shorter cycles. So the beautiful second ray, there are also colors associated with these, and there seems to be a lot of disagreement about that. But looking at the notes that Bailey herself took from her conversations with the Tibetan, she laid out the colors as being first ray blue, second ray indigo. And I'll just use that convention here despite the debates. The third ray, when you've got two, you have three. I mean, there's some, it's both of them are yet a third thing. That's kind of like the father, mother, son. The son is the born out of will and love. It's the third ray is action and intelligence, activity, and it's a very potent ray because it is the ray of the primary of the first solar system before this one, where all that matter was energized through the eons of that solar system's existence. That the very matter of the solar system was energized to respond to the third ray. So we find it, it's a very much associated with the physical plane, with matter. Its symbol is the spider web. Intelligence, intellectual activity, evolution associated with the third. Buddha was a classic representative of the third ray. In human institutions, business, intellect, transportation, communication, the magician uses the third ray. It's been in manifestation since 1425. So we definitely have third ray souls that incarnate among us, as well as second ray. So if I don't know if you've all had a chance to have a look at that handout that I sent out, but there's an interesting diagram in there, and I'll share my screen and show it to you again here, about how 7 can be derived from 3. We've talked about the 3. What about the remaining 4? So let's look at this image. The way Laurency explains it is, this is worthy of much pondering, that each of the rays as they manifest is composed of different strengths of the 3 primary rays. Interestingly, the first is all 3 of them strong. So the primary rays all have a very strong first ray component to them, and then more emphasis on second or third. I'm not going to try to talk about this too much. It's just something to look at and think about. The third ray, well, we'll talk about these 4 rays next, basically. So if we talk about the 4th ray, its color is yellow in the description I gave, the Bailey's description, and it is about harmony through conflict. It's about harmonization of things, achieving harmony and the effort that it takes is the conflict. It is often associated with artists, though artists can be on any ray, but having the fourth ray contributes in most cases to an artist makeup. It's in the middle of the seven, 3 higher, 3 lower. It's a balancing ray. And this is a very fascinating thing about this ray. It is beginning to manifest in 2025. And I remember reading about this in the 70s and thinking, am I going to live long enough to see the fourth ray manifest? And it looks like I am. Finally, we get to see souls of the fourth ray type come in, and then much more of the energy coming in. And really, these rays aren't necessarily good or bad. They are used and misused, the kind of energy that they provide. So this ray, there may be some conflict related to it. There may be incredible achievements in the world of art, especially when the fourth ray souls that start incarnating are grown and making their contribution. So this corresponds with the release of the esoteric knowledge that is also talked about in the Bailey books and Laurency's books as a new dispensation of that knowledge is due in 2025. And certainly we can see why that might be needed. The books from so long ago have very dated terminology and some other reasons that they really, I don't know if they've appealed to enough people, but certainly the new approach, the new dispensation of information will take a very new approach. And I'll talk about some more influences on that approach too, as we go. Let's talk about the fifth ray. And let's see. Oh, well, just something else to be considering. But the fifth ray is orange is the color. It is science and knowledge. It's associated with education and truth, research. It's very keen on getting things right, understanding exactly what's happening. The fifth ray is the ray of the mental plane, which is also called the fifth dimension in some of the newer discussions about things. It is one of the dangers of the fifth ray, of a fifth ray mental type, is crystallization, that it gets so set in its ways of thinking and determined that this is, okay, I refined this, it's decided, and now it's crystallized and not being open to new ways of thinking. This ray came into manifestation in 1775, and look at the tremendous scientific discoveries we've had since then. But there have been some problems. So let me read a quote from Laurency here. Scientific discoveries in physics have come too fast. Men have gained a knowledge of forces which they are not ready to use in the right manner, and to the detriment of life. Fortunately, the planetary government has decided to shut off the energies of the fifth department, so they will not be active in the worlds of man. Vibrations coming from Leo, Sagittarius, and Aquarius, as you can see, the astrological signs associated, will not be permitted to pass through the fifth department after the year 1950. Repercussions can certainly make themselves felt still 50 years after the suspension, but from the year 2000 on, those energies will have ceased. This means that no scientific discoveries or inventions falling within the domain of this department would be possible. Mankind has already gained more knowledge of and power over nature than it can rightly use. After the year 2000, mankind has to content itself with what it has so far managed to discover. Of course, and that's the quote, the planetary hierarchy can also choose to give us knowledge of anti-gravity or free energy or whatever they might think is helpful and humanity might be ready for, assuming that we actually can clean up our motives here and humanity to the point where we could benefit from these discoveries safely. But I thought that was very interesting that, and take note of this, the way that's phrased. The energies vibrations from Leo, Sagittarius, Aquarius will not be permitted to pass through the fifth department. So the energy originates in the astrological sign and passes through the fifth department to humanity. Just, that's an interesting hint. It doesn't say much about exactly how that works. So certainly, it seems to me that there have been scientific discoveries in the last 20 years, 22 years since 2000. I don't know if that's some kind of momentum, if the souls that were born in the era of the fifth ray are still alive, having an influence, maybe, but this is what Laurency says about it. So the sixth ray, idealism, devotion, fanaticism, this is a ray that we're dealing with in humanity right now. It has been passing out of manifestation since 1625. Lower grades of religion built heavily on this ray. But the day of religions is obviously passing with the sixth ray passing out. They were supreme in the Piscean era, which corresponds to the sixth ray presence. And now they are rapidly fading out. And unfortunately, many people cling to the old forms, fight to restore them, are sure that what was a great source of help and wisdom to them in the past will certainly continue to be, yet things change. Fifth ray souls will not be coming in. I don't know when that stops. And I don't know exactly when the borderline, the cutoff between the Piscean age and the Aquarian age takes place. But the Aquarian age is associated with the seventh ray. The seventh ray, in a way, has perhaps the vaguest description because we're still defining it. It's still coming into manifestation. It started coming into manifestation in 1675, but it must be on a very long cycle because this increase continues steadily, as well as the increase of the Aquarian influence. This is actually a huge opportunity for humanity. To quote Laurency again, the energies of the seventh department will be the most active ones in the Aquarian zodiacal epoch recently begun. The overwhelming energy there is in the new life. The overwhelming energy there is in the new life forms depends on the cooperation between the energies of the seventh department and the zodiacal energies of Aquarius. Therefore, it will be possible for men to acquire a rational worldview and life view for the first time in history. That is why this knowledge could not be presented in previous ages, only in our times. It will take a long time, however, before mankind will agree on the mental system of Hylozoics as the only tenable working hypothesis. Hylozoics is Laurency's word for description of reality. In the meantime, mankind will live in a mental chaos with a countless number of fictional systems. Well, that's where we're at now, a countless number of fictional systems. But he is giving us some hope that within 500 or 1,000 years, as these energies get stronger and stronger, we'll take advantage of that. Unless mankind in his madness has destroyed himself, he points out another place, we will have this opportunity for all of mankind to be working with real facts instead of fictions. Let's hope that happens. So other ways that we see the seventh ray manifesting is the great industrialists of the 1800s, 1900s, Henry Ford and his tremendous, it's about organization and order. And these geniuses of industry were using this kind of energy to create new means of production. And even lately, Steve Jobs and Elon Musk and these people are probably people that are representing energies of the seventh ray and using them in some way. The etheric world is a world tuned to the seventh ray. All of us have our physical bodies of the dense material, but many of us are becoming more aware of the etheric component of our bodies, a subtler a subtler world, really, which is almost like the physical is two worlds, this dense physical we're objectively aware of, and the etheric that we sense, and that many people are objectively aware of. And interestingly, 2025, the year 2025 is mentioned again in this context, that there will be some revolutionary discovery about etheric vision, about the existence of the etheric world and the etheric body. And having science on board with things really helps accelerate with its research. And it's right now it doesn't accept the idea at all of the etheric body, but hopefully there will be some discovery. It's the next sensory ability to open up for humanity, scheduled for relatively soon. As we open up our etheric vision, it's going to confirm a lot of things. Tell us some things about death, about the fact that this energy body that we all have is the vital body, has to do with all kinds of healing are associated with this energy, the etheric body, etheric energy. It'll change the science of medicine. It's kind of amazing that doctors have gotten as far as they can without knowledge of the etheric body. The etheric actually energizes and animates the organism. Without the etheric, the meat won't move. It's necessary. So this is part of the opportunity that Laurency mentioned earlier. He also says it'll be 30,000 years, 30,000 years before equally favorable circumstances return. So I really hope humanity can take advantage of this. Here's another quote from Laurency. For those who are serious about their consciousness development, it is very important to learn how to ascertain the influences of the different departments, to see the significance of the centers and the different envelopes, especially the etheric envelope, and the fact that the energies cause difficulties and diseases. And of course, that means if they're out of balance, if they're in excess or in deficiency, that causes etheric problems. Another quote from Laurency. I refer you all to Laurency. I think he's a great motherlode of facts and information that is in perfect alignment with Bailey and with Theosophy. He says, most people have no idea of the enormous amounts of energies flowing unused through their envelopes, bodies. They are victims of the energies of their envelopes, not understanding that if they use them rightly, they can accomplish very great things. The important thing is not the very action, but the attitude to life from which action automatically follows. Definitely something to ponder. Laurency says in the future, we'll be able to determine the departments of the bodies of a newborn, which obviously will be a great assistance in deciding how best to train or stimulate or what to expect from the individual. So here we are at the cusp of the Piscean and Aquarian age, the 6th versus the 7th department energies. An interesting thing about the 6th ray, it's vertical, it's a devotional energy. It's looking up or idealism. And really, humanity has made great strides in its idealistic nature. Because of this long era of the 6th ray, it's certainly not all bad. Well, Laurency describes it as an epic of horror, this Piscean era, but nonetheless, humanity has learned a lot about sacrifice and idealism. So the 6th versus the 7th is this vertical, and this is one reason the 6th ray is problematic. It's because people are in silos. They have their beliefs, their devotions, they're not sharing, they're not working together. They very easily think I'm the only right one and the rest of them are wrong. It's a vertical silo. Well, the 7th ray coming into Aquarius is group oriented. The 7th ray, Aquarian energy is particularly focused on the group. It's about impersonal energy and group energy, and groups have been emphasized again and again in the latest teachings to come from our guides from the next kingdom, that initiation will happen in groups, that working with one of these guides will happen in a group rather than with individuals. So this is another part of the Aquarian energy. And obviously, religion's not going down without a fight. And not that religion should stop or is necessarily bad, but it will have to take a new form. And all of the forms built out of the sixth ray energy will have to change. And in fact, Laurency says that the change will not be to the new good form, it will be to a transient form that bridges to the next form. It basically helps us survive letting go of these old institutional forms, and that all the institutions are affected. At the end of one of these zodiacal epics, whether it's at the end of Aries to Pisces or Pisces to Aquarius, all the old institutional forms are completely reworked. And so it's not unusual that there's a lot of chaos. And certainly there is a lot of chaos and people are not sure what to believe. And this was the situation 2000 years ago. People doubted that one could know the truth, that they couldn't pick from all the different varieties of systems offered to them. And we're in a somewhat similar situation today. But it will stabilize. We get through these things. So sixth versus seventh is problematic, but we'll see how it works out. Another thing about these rays is the odd-numbered rays versus the even-numbered rays. The even number have to do with, if a person has many even-number rays, they tend to be introverts. An introvert, or extrovert if they're the odd-numbered rays, which kind of makes sense when you think, 1, will, 3, intelligence, 5, knowledge, and 7, manifestation, order. Those are pretty outwardly focused energies. But if you look at the even numbers, 2, love, wisdom, 4, harmony through conflict, the harmony aspect, and 6, this devotional energy, these are more along a different kind of path, really, the introvert path. In looking at some of the descriptions that the Tibetan made in writing in Discipleship in the New Age, there are 2 volumes, 1 and 2, Alice Bailey books. The Tibetan is giving advice from the perspective of someone who's completely graduated from the human kingdom and can see exactly what's going on, giving advice to his disciples and students to say, okay, this is your ray balance. He's telling them, a lot of them, what their actual ray constituents are. Your causal is this, your personality is this, and so therefore you need to work on this. And people that had too much of 2, 4, 6, he would say, you need some stiffening. You need to focus on first ray or fifth ray kind of activities in order to stiffen up a bit. As you can imagine, somebody who's all odd-numbered rays is a bit too stiff and has problems connecting with the second ray, connecting with people due to the second ray or fourth ray. In mental consciousness, the first ray, the fourth ray, the fifth ray, all are the strongest. In emotional consciousness, the second ray and the sixth ray. The emotional world is not a world where it's very oriented in facts or will. It's more about subjective experience with the second and the love energy and the devotional energy. Physical consciousness, interestingly, the physical organism, it's stated, is always third ray. And, it's the material of the previous solar system. It's the third ray body will have an etheric body of different department, depending on, incarnation to incarnation, that can change for each of us. But the seventh is the basic home of the etheric body. So if you're fortunate enough that the seventh department is the one associated with your physical form, that's generally a benefit. up to 3 of your bodies can be of the same department, which I'm sure is somewhat overwhelming if you've got that much of a particular ray's energy. 3 bodies of the 6th ray, for instance, is going to make you a fanatic and annoying to everybody. That's too much 6th ray. But you can't conclude a person's developmental level from their departments. We use all of the rays in various combinations and different incarnations. There's only one ray change that does depend on making progress. If the soul ray stays the same throughout your incarnations, except when you reach a pretty advanced state, like you're a disciple, and you're one of like 4, 5, 6, 7, then you transition to one of the 3 primary at some point, 1, 2, or 3. So that's the rest of, personality ray, mental ray, emotional ray, physical ray. They all can be different every time. And we'll talk a little. I'll give some examples. We'll look at some people's ray combinations and what their challenges are, how they're advised to address them by their master. Interestingly, another aspect of 7, just to bring it up, is the ages. Laurency says for the ages of life, 7 years each is generally considered of great importance. The first 21 years, the first 7 years, 14, 21, each are recapitulating past lives. That the third department has a certain effect at 21 years. That's 3 times 7. The 4th at 28, 4 times 7, and the 5th at 35. And the individual's masters emotionality the most easily after 42 years, 6 times 7. And those could just be speculations, but 7 shows, that's another place that 7 shows up in these periods of a person's life. So in this guide from the next kingdom that you are associated with once you're a disciple, gives you advice. He encourages you to help determine what your rays will be in a future incarnation by, taking on more activities of that ray type so that you include more of the material. There's interesting that there's a material basis to this, that as you incorporate more second ray material into your causal body, you have a higher chance of having a second ray causal body or soul body in a future lifetime. So we do have some influence over what bodies we end up with. And at some places, reading through the commentaries on people's ray balances, he says, you were a 6th ray fanatic in the last lifetime, therefore you have a couple of 6th ray bodies this time, and just your challenge is to use the other bodies with their other rays to balance that out this time. So I think I talked a little bit about astrology already, showed you that slide. Let me just bring that back up again. So here we have, note that some of these astrological signs are only associated with 1 of the departments, others with 3 or 2. And this is really something, I think I included this in the handout. I hope I did. But it's something to think about. If you're a follower of astrology and you've thought a lot about these signs, it's interesting to think about how they might relate to the 7th. I mean, Sagittarius, that's my sign. I can easily see how it relates to the 6th. Sagittarius, like the 6th ray with its vertical duality, Sagittarius is a vertical duality. The centaur is half man, half animal. And of course, that also can have a higher correspondence of half man, half soul. And that's where I'm trying to take it. But So my own rays, I have puzzled over this. Actually, Laurency says that in some esoteric knowledge orders, you're expected to figure this out, and that that's considered prerequisite to moving on to another level. And he also says that only 46 selves, which is the Buddhic world beyond the mental, are capable of ascertaining other people's rays. Well, so we certainly shouldn't be jumping to conclusions that we are able to look at somebody and go, oh, okay, I think you got the fourth ray here and third ray there. That may not be so easy. And as much as I pondered these rays, I can't quite figure out my own. I'm sure there's some fifth ray in there. Could be a fifth ray mind. I'm very fact oriented and science oriented. And I didn't think I really had any sixth ray. But Valerie, my wife, tells me that you probably, you probably have some sixth ray when you look at your devotion to these teachings, to Laurency's teachings and to sharing them, trying to help people with them. That could be where some sixth ray is at work in me. So getting back to the soul here, understanding what the ray of the soul is may not be easy to figure out, but it certainly is important. When I found out that I was a soul, or at least aspiring to be the soul, yet was the soul, that's a mystery right there, how we can both be aspiring to soul consciousness and be the soul at the same time. I actually go through that mystery in my other talk about the soul, if you're curious. But I became very interested in the soul's perspective and motivations and in its tremendous abilities to know all past incarnations and just read the past like an open book, and start to participate in the great plans of the cosmic beings, right? This is and to be free of all the human limitations and human suffering. This soul level is quite a thing to achieve, and it's really, for all of us, it's a goal coming up. It works through whatever combination of rays you've got, and some are better than others. And just one more musical note about this chord that we are is 5 notes, 5 rays of our bodies. Some people are minor chords, and that's not good or bad. It can be just as beautiful, but some people are major chords, some people are minor chords. So the soul ray, and wherever it reflects in your other bodies, personality, mental, emotional, physical, it can either be a great conflict and really, I guess, an opportunity to work out our problems with identifying with the soul, or it can be a real blessing in that soul energy is coming in. You can use it. It helps you. If it's a second ray soul energy, you're going to use that love through whatever body it pours through. So the soul is a particularly interesting topic to me. And as we go through these discussions of people's particular ray balances, we're going to focus on how the soul has an impact there. Your personality, which Laurency calls the triad, this is the first triad for those familiar with that concept, and I'll just refer to it as the personality. That changes every lifetime, just about, and so do the other lower ones. We can be an introvert and then an extrovert. This can alternate until we get it all balanced out. For myself, I think I'm probably balanced in that respect because I don't feel either too much of an introvert or too much of an extrovert. When we look at personality and soul rays, it's not just individuals. Countries have these rays too. So let me look at what is given as the rays of the nations. This is a fascinating aspect, and in relationships between these, obviously, can be shown through this. Here we are, personality, sixth ray of idealism. Well, you can see why religion has got a hold here and why we're struggling to move on. And really, this is a beautiful thing. We have the second ray soul here in the US, and I really would like to see more of that manifesting. Our destiny has to do with our soul ray, and it's the destiny of this country and of Great Britain with its second ray soul to pour. Well, look at Britain's motto, I serve, to pour our love energy out in service. USA, I light the way. I'm looking forward to just living up to our motto. And you may have noticed already, Russia, sixth ray of idealism, we have the same personality as Russia. We're both perhaps too devoted to our leaders, to our detriment, very idealistic. We've founded our country on ideals, and so did Russia. The communist ideals didn't work out as well as the ideals based on personal freedom and on the rule of law that we've come up with here, but it's a component of the Russian people to be idealistic. And this is an interesting motto for Russia. I link two ways. And it's certainly not happening right now, but there is a great destiny for Russia with the seventh ray coming and becoming ever stronger. Let's hope they do show us how to link the two ways, the sixth and seventh ray, to help us find the balance and the way through that conflict, which is still not worked out. And this is a fascinating thing. This is the only country, Brazil, the only country with the second ray personality, which makes me want to go to Brazil and see what that's all about. What does a country with a second ray personality feel like to be within? You see the fourth ray in the soul of a number of countries: Brazil, Germany, Austria. This ray of harmony, of balance, of art has, seems like it's always been working out through Germany. They've always had an interesting art, music, certainly been a powerful force there. Italy, fourth ray of art for their personality. This is, and so does India. So interesting parallel there. Certainly Italy has been a source of great artistic achievements, and with the Vatican sitting right there, and it's no surprise that it's the soul ray is sixth ray of idealism and devotion. Carve the paths. The Roman Empire was well known for its road building, but this is meant in a higher way, and we have yet to see quite how these countries are going to manifest their mottos. It's a lot to think about. France, odd-numbered rays. This is an extrovert nation in a way. Great intellect, and if you know how things work in France, people don't rise in politics or government without tremendous intellectual ability and passing many tests and qualifying in many different ways. Intellect is strongly emphasized there. And then science. Maybe France will be the country that offers us this breakthrough with the etheric awareness, the ability to detect the etheric world, the etheric body. I release the light. Sounds great. Well, we see the same first ray in the personality of Germany and Great Britain. An interesting similarity. and the first ray for India and China. Who knows how that's going to show itself, but it won't be the same way that the first ray showed up as in personalities of of Germany and Great Britain. In a lesser evolved humanity, it didn't take the greatest approach in Germany and in Britain with its empire. Well, hopefully on a higher turn of the spiral, this egoic ray of India and China won't manifest into humanity. Maybe in the 2,000 years Laurency mentions, when this first ray is in manifestation, we'll see something much better. So let me just sum up. What have I got here? The incarnations of the rays here. This chart sums them up. I probably could have found a different way to represent this on kind of a historical time progression. What overlaps with what? This is my first attempt to add slides to my presentation, so please go easy on me. But here we have a summary. This means that right now, the second, the third, fourth about to come in, the sixth passing out, and the seventh coming in. We've got the second, the third, the fourth, and the seventh in incarnation, which obviously changes all of humanity. When souls of only a particular type, only a particular set of types can incarnate, then it's going to change the world. Having more of these fourth ray souls coming in, more of the seventh ray souls coming in, and phasing out the sixth will totally change everything. So let me talk a little bit about some of the other relationships of the rays. The relationship of the rays to the kingdoms of nature. Okay, that's a different slide. Let me share that one. We have mineral kingdom, 7 and 1. Interesting, the vegetable kingdom has 3 and they're all even numbers. In its subjective awareness, which is the kind of consciousness that manifests in the vegetable kingdom, it has some energy of these 3 types. And it's kind of hard to see how that can manifest in plants, but certainly in animals, we can see the 3rd ray of activity and the 6th ray of devotion. I don't know if I see a lot of devotion in our cats, but certainly dogs are very devoted. In the human kingdom, this is the ray 4, we're also called the 4th kingdom, 1, 2, 3, 4 here. Ray 4 is very powerful, and 5 are focused on knowledge and facts that bridges us into the soul kingdom, ray 5 and 2. This is where we're trying to get to, the next kingdom after human, the topic of another talk of mine. Interestingly, the chakras are associated with particular departments. Crown center, which isn't active until a human is at the very, I'm not quite sure if we're even human when we fully open that one up. It's beyond human. Throat, intelligence, activity, knowledge. Well, throat is our creative center. The higher corresponds to the sacral, the physical creative center. Sex energy that creates, here we have that transmuted to the throat in the advanced person for creative speaking. Heart, Obviously, the second ray makes a lot of sense for the heart, second ray of love and wisdom. Solar plexus, sixth ray. Solar plexus is very powerful in all of us. We've opened it up wide open in Atlantean times. And the sixth ray strengthens the ego that functions through the solar plexus. Sacral, 3, 5, 7. I'm not sure what to make of that. That's the sacral plexus, which has to do with creativity, like sexual creativity and desire. 3, 5, 7. A lot of these charts are things just to think about. Not so much, I can't offer you an exact explanation. In the basal center, the base of the spine, 4 or 7. I can't say too much about that either, but it's just another interesting set of facts they've given us about these things. Now, my grandfather, to bring him up once again, he had some interesting teachings that I've not found verified in any of these books, so I'm just going to put them out there as, something to think about. But he talked a lot, and he was quite a teacher along these lines. He talked a lot about the chakras of our country and how they were also centers for these rays. And he talked about the throat center being Boston, and that it's in the process of transitioning to the west. All of these centers are transitioning from the East Coast to the West Coast, according to him. Like Boston's transitioning to San Francisco. Okay, interesting observation. He also said that the second ray, the heart center of the country, was transitioning from New York to Los Angeles. And that there is a great second ray deva in Los Angeles, pink deva, an angel basically that lives there. And that the energy of the second ray is very powerful there. And we expect to see it manifesting in more ways. The sacral plexus, he said, was St. Louis. And that it was in the process of shifting to Salt Lake City. And here I am in Salt Lake City. That's fascinating observation. Here are the Mormons working out with interesting results and working out sexual energy in many different ways. This is the land where polygamy had its time. And the sexual energy here is, I haven't been to St. Louis, but I think there is a general sense of working on that energy here in Salt Lake City. Anyway, I just put those out there because, one more, the head center. First ray, Washington, D.C., shifting to Mesa Grande. I think that's Arizona or New Mexico. I'm not sure which, but he said it's not a city so much that it's shifting to, but it was the capital of the civilization that was here long before Europeans showed up. But there was a great civilization that spanned all of North America of the native inhabitants, and Mesa Grande was its capital. So just food for thought once again. So now let's start looking at some of these examples of the way the rays have manifested in individuals. I think this is particularly fascinating. And these are from Laurency, and in the handout I refer to his chapter on the 7 departments, which is just great. I really encourage you to read chapter 14 of one of his books anyway, but I've got it listed there in the handout. If you want to learn a lot more about the departments, that's a great place to start. So now let me pull up some of his examples from that chapter. right. Once again, back to sharing my screen here. And I don't know if I covered this one. I looked at that. Departments of the worlds. I just can circle back to that here. The seventh, physical, etheric, sixth, emotional, fifth, mental. I've mentioned this already. Third, the physical organism. Here we go. Here's somebody. He uses a shorthand here to say this person is 12461. I know it sounds like a zip code, but what that's referring to is a first ray soul, causal body here, second ray personality, or triad as he calls it, fourth ray mental, sixth ray emotional, and first ray physical. And here's what he says about it. Now, these individuals that we're looking at here, just a preliminary, is that these are of aspirants to discipleship. These individuals have reached a stage of humanity and have acquired perspective consciousness, which Laurency defines further in other areas, but the stage of humanity is quite advanced for a human being, beyond the cultural level, which is beyond the civilizational level. They've acquired perspective consciousness, another gradation of consciousness associated with the subplanes of the mental world. They have gained the qualities of attraction so as to be able to love all living creatures without thought of their own selves. This does not eliminate all kinds of egoism, but facilitates the ability to love without ulterior or personal motives. Therefore, they stand a good chance of reaching the fifth natural kingdom, in other words, achieving initiation to mastery to beyond human within a limited number of incarnations. So we're looking at some pretty advanced people. This person, 12461, departments 3, 5, and 7 are lacking, but balance is maintained through the first department of the causal and the physical. So you've got basically the highest of these and the lowest help maintain balance for this individual who is otherwise on the introvert side of the softer numbers here. Longing for mental harmony, which is department 4 here, can sometimes entail too superficial judgment and action. That's the observation given here. And I'm not sure if these are Laurency's observations or those that he's picked up from the particular teacher for these individuals that was trying to help them. But this is a perspective on their rays. The idealism of the emotion, of the emotional body, gave devotion to work and the ability to see good in everything. So that's a good side of the sixth ray here. This person could see good in everything. All right, let's look at this one. 36563. 2 third ray bodies, soul and physical. Again, the highest and the lowest, like the last one. Here we got some fifth, 2 sixth ray bodies. That's a lot of sixth. That can be overwhelming. Personality and emotional body. Let's see what he says. The mental, being in its right department, quote, right department, fifth, dominated. The third department of the physical afforded the power of physical orientation. The double third, combined with the fifth of the mental, afforded physical sovereignty. I'm not sure what that means. Double third, physical sovereignty. The sixth of the emotional, also at home, the sixth ray really is the ray of the emotional body, reinforced the sixth of the triad, sixth of the personality, in other words, made this person fanatically devoted to his ideals. Okay, that's where the double six shows up as a problem. The problem of this aspirant was in his particular consideration of emotionality. Well, yes, the emotionality is going to get swept away by this devotional energy reinforced by the personality. Let's have a look at this person. I mean, it sure would be nice if we're also told, oh, this person was Einstein or Marilyn Monroe or somebody, that some famous individual. We don't have that information. We just have their ray balance to look at. So this one is two, and here we have the double sixth again, personality and emotional body, both six. This is going to be interesting to see if this combination can deal with it better than the last one. Fifth is going to be strong in the mental, and seventh in the physical is going to be strong too. So let's see. The health of this aspirant, was very delicate. He was advised to take good care of his organism, but not to think of it in other respects. In his quiet life, he could help and support those able to work in the physical. Well, I guess I don't really see why this person would be struggling with the physical with the seventh ray there. But there could be other factors. So let's move on to the next one. Two 1-4-6-2. Two instances of the second ray. That seems to me like it must be good. The second ray coming in, lots of love coming into the soul, expressing physically, though maybe that's not ideal for the physical body. And once again, the emotional tied up with the sixth, but there's not so much of it. There's not a sixth ray personality here also contributing to it. So let's see what they say here. And also note that there's only one odd numbered body here, though it's fairly strong as the personality. So this person could be an introvert. The first of the triad and of the physical dominated personality. The problem of this aspirant was in making the energies of the causal consciousness of the soul assert themselves via the fourth and the sixth to the cultivation of divine indifference to the temperament of the first. So getting the second ray to show up through the mental fourth and the emotional sixth meant somehow overcoming the strength of this first ray personality through the cultivation of divine indifference, which I would assume this first ray personality pretty much wanted to run everything, and they had to be indifferent to the personality's wishes. Very different individuals here. 1-2-5-6-2. Okay. Personality and physical body of the same ray. Mental at home at 5, emotional at home at 6, and the soul ray of the first. All right. Let's see what he says about that. The triad or personality has a relation to the emotional and to the physical. So that's this 2 relating to the 6 and 2. This one. To the emotional and the physical. As a relation with the mental to the causal. So here we have mental body relating to the soul and the personality relating to the emotional and physical. The sixth combined with the double second. So sixth double second, we're really loaded up on second ray here. Where am I here? The sixth combined with the double second afforded an intense sensitivity, which made this aspirant compassionate, saintly, loved by all. He was mentally, but not physically intelligent, which he would have been had the physical been of the third or the seventh department. So mentally, he's got to, he's set up to have a good mind, but not physically intelligent. I wonder what that means exactly. Does that mean that the mind can't express itself well through the physical brain? What does he mean by physical intelligence? Maybe this person's not physically active and comfortable in his body and, athletic. So, but I would think that being a person that is compassionate, saintly, and loved by all is a pretty good, pretty good thing to wind up with. And then he says, the final thing he says, the first of the causal entailed success in everything. Well, that's pretty powerful there. Seems like that's going to contribute to the mental and somewhat to the others. The first is, powerful in all three primary rays. So this must have been interesting. All these people, now I'd like to meet them. It'd be interesting people to know once you know about their ray balance. All right, so here we have second ray soul, sixth ray personality, first ray mind and emotional. What a combo. And seventh ray physical. Wait, I got this wrong. This is not emotional here. Oh, that is right. This is wrong. Personality is sixth. All right, that's corrected. Wait. Sixth is personality. That's it. Okay. And where's the mental? On the first. Okay. All right, let's see what the commentary is on this person. And this has got to be an unusual individual to have a first ray mind and a first ray emotional body. I can't imagine how one would actually deal with that. 26117. The sixth of the triad and the double first made this aspirant hard and exacting to himself and others, made him regard his views to be the only right ones, not understanding that everybody is to find his own way, his own view, method, etc. The sixth entailed, as always, fanaticism and cocksure statements, which are proof of lack of common sense. Well, this was a difficult combo for this person. I mean, just these three working together, the sixth ray personality with basically these three make up the personality. So all this first ray to contribute to the sixth ray, fanaticism really must have been difficult. All right. 13366. It's got these two pairs. Interesting to see how that's going to affect things. The first of the causal and the double third entailed serious conflicts with the double sixth. The intellect worked on its own, and emotional attraction worked on its own. So these did not work together. Emotionally, didn't work with mentally. The first of the causal resulted in isolation, emancipation, by which Laurency means perhaps freeing oneself too much from everybody else, which was part of the isolation, and self-importance. The thirds, with their critical and analytical powers, made this individual egotistic, intellectually vain, and a victim of mental fictions. Wow, what a tough combo. It is more important to understand the views of other people than to assess their comprehension. There's a wise phrase for us all to take to heart. It is more important to understand the views of other people than to assess their comprehension. And it sounds like that's what this person was doing, and trying to assess everybody else's comprehension without necessarily understanding them. This aspirant was encouraged to pass from comprehension to understanding, not to be attached to theories and intellectual ideality, and to satisfy, quote, the needs of the heart. Well, you know, as we move along the path of evolution, we're going to find ourselves with some tough combinations that are tests and opportunities to really work on ourselves on the path of discipleship. I'm sure some of these tough combinations come up. And it makes me feel very fortunate. I think I have an easygoing combination this time around. I would struggle with this one. All right. Let's look at this one. 2, 4, 5, 6, 3. All on different departments. Second ray soul, third physical, fourth personality. These are kind of natural bodies for these rays. Second ray soul, physical. A third ray is one of those that are very strong for physical. Fourth ray personality, generally it's kind of the default ray for personality. Fifth ray mental, sixth ray emotional. We've talked about those. So I'm thinking this must be a pretty fortuitous combination. Let's see what the commentary says. All 5 envelopes are of different departments, which is not very common. The second of the causal vitalizes the heart center. All right. It is acquired automatically through goodwill to everybody. Second of the causal, meaning second of the soul, vitalizes the heart center. It is acquired automatically through goodwill. So I think he's saying that basically goodwill to everybody is acquired in this combo. The fourth of the triad solved all conflicts through service. That sounds great. This one here. The fifth of the mental affords clarity only if the heart is present. Well, sounds like the heart's opened up here. The sixth of the emotional gives purposefulness and a restricted horizon. I don't know if he means a good thing or a bad thing by restricted horizon, but then he says the third of the physical yields intelligent work in the physical, but easily too many interests. This is probably a person with a really active mind, just following up on this interest and that interest and jumping all about. That's what it sounds like what the commentary is saying. The second of the causal afforded intuitive understanding, affection, and warmth. The fifth of the mental, influenced by the second of the causal, gave intelligent aspiration to unity. So this second of the causal really is coming in a bunch of good ways with intuitive understanding, affection, and warmth. That's great. Obviously, we like that. The fifth of the mental, influenced by the second of the causal, gave intelligent aspiration to unity. This is an aspirant who probably is going to succeed if they can focus their interests. Sounds like the only negative thing that he said there. All right, one more individual. 61167. Oh, this sounds kind of ominous. I mean, that's a lot of 6 and a lot of power in the personality and the mind. So let's see. The double first and the seventh entailed intensive activity in the physical world. The double sixth enhanced this intensity. 6 is all about, yeah, definitely intensity with the double sixth. The triad, okay, the personality in conjunction with the mental afforded restless mental activity. So that's these two first together. Restless mental activity with incessant planning, divided activity, inability to distinguish essentials and unessentials. this aspirant was encouraged to cultivate the qualities of the second department so that the pertaining matter could replace that of the sixth of the causal. So this is something I mentioned earlier, that those who have a soul ray of 4, 5, 6, 7, at some point they jump to one of the three primary. And this aspirant was encouraged to cultivate second ray activities, more educational, wisdom, love-oriented activities, so they might make the jump from sixth to second, which is obviously going to reduce their problems with all of this difficult sixth ray energy. All right. So that's it for these individual considerations. Let me see if I think someone has posted a question, perhaps. Where do the mottos come from? Is one question. India's "I hide the light" is interesting. Well, these mottos are out of Bailey, and "I hide the light." I think that's interesting for India, because Laurency talks about how India really has had more exposure to the esoteric knowledge than the West, but it's from long ago, and the caste system has restricted that knowledge to the Brahmins, who have been very consistent in not sharing that knowledge with everybody else. It's been reserved for their particular class of people, and basically they're hiding the light that way. But as the knowledge that they have is gradually revealed, Laurency has been doing it, Bailey's been doing it, Theosophy has been doing it, then hopefully that knowledge will be shared with the whole world. Another statement: interested to hear more about the musical connection with chords and triads and how these aspects influence our lives. I'm interested in that too, with a basically sound-oriented personality. I'm not a visual person. This is the first time I tried to make slides. I hope they're adequate. And these colors are just approximations of the ones she gave. But sound, I'm a sound person. And music is very powerful to me. And I would like to understand that better too, the musical connection of chords and triads. But I don't have much more information about that. Why does a chord evoke a certain emotion? I guess I'd always thought that it was due to its history in Atlantis. That music picked up emotional connotations through all of these different civilizations and lives that we've had so long ago. But the rays obviously are going to have an influence on that. Certainly the first and fifth, that's probably the easiest, strongest chord you can make. And 1, 3, 5, that's a strong musical chord right there. And that's, when people think of a chord, that's generally the kind of chord they're thinking of. 1, 3, 5, there you go. That's obviously a very powerful combination of the departments. But in a human, it may not be that great. Laurency talks about the Prussian type, that is 1, 3, 5, and is purely extrovert, physically action focused, and brings to mind Prussian military types that are not very sensitive. So, I wish I could say more about the musical side, though. I don't know that much more about it. I don't think much has been given, really. Or maybe it has, but it's not easy to find in the Bailey and Laurency books. All right. Well, when I pointed out that only a 46 self can ascertain everybody's rays, and that for our own selves, it's very hard to determine what our ray balance is. Nonetheless, it's really good to think about it. It's going to be very important to us as we take up more advanced work. Once we've graduated from human, we'll be working very closely with the rays. And these rays are they are embodied. They're individuals whose job it is to represent the ray. In the planetary hierarchy, there are 3 positions that represent the first 3 rays, the first, second, and third rays that are known to us. We've heard about them. The Manu is the first ray representative in the hierarchy and currently held by the Master Morya. These are 43 selves, very advanced selves. You know, to be fully achieve adeptship beyond human is to master world 45. Then world 44, 43 is quite a bit higher still. World 42 beyond that is extra solar system, even beyond the solar system. So these are all 43 selves that hold these roles as first, second, and third ray, as the Kohans is one of the words used for them. The second ray representative in the hierarchy is the Bodhisattva, or the Christ, the world teacher. Maitreya holds this role, 43 self Maitreya, who is getting ready to graduate to his cosmic progression of evolution. And only through this Aquarian epic will he hold the position of Bodhisattva / Christ. It will be taken over at the end of this 2,500 approximate year period by the former Pythagoras, Kuthumi. The third ray, Mahakohan, was taken in 1925. The role was taken by Saint Germain. And it's considered a rather remarkable speed of progression through the initiations. Saint Germain, we know through history, Count Rakoczy, Proclus was a Greek philosopher, and many other incarnations. Orpheus, I believe. I actually have a talk about that. The next kingdom beyond human, where when I gave that talk, I remembered all this information much better about what their past incarnations were. And feel free to go look it up on my One Pure Love website that I mentioned in the handout. These are fantastic individuals, and we know of Saint Germain from his European incarnations. There's a great debate as to whether he was Shakespeare. And Buddha has represented this third ray energy in his period earlier. So I really encourage everybody to have a look at the material on this, that chapter on the rays in Laurency in general. There's lots of material on the rays in the Bailey books. And really, even if we can't quite figure it out, figure out our own rays or other people's rays in order to help them, we definitely benefit as we progress in having some idea of what it's all about. We're going to learn, it's on the path for us, and putting good facts about, these are facts about a reality, putting those into our subconscious where they're continually stirred around with all the other thoughts in our subconscious causes them to form associations that rise to the surface and make a new realization for us. So I'll close with that. Thank you, everybody.